Hi there, welcome everyone. Thank you so much for joining for today's webinar. Today is day one of a two-day webinar series where we'll be looking at the reservations in RoomKeyPMS today, and tomorrow we'll be looking at the front office operations. So to get us started, I wanted to open up the floor with a bit of a poll here. So on screen, you're going to see a couple of questions pop up. It looks like a lot of people are fairly new to RoomKey. We've got a couple people that they just haven't used RoomKey yet, or they're within their first year of using RoomKey as well. That's really great to see. Okay, so I'm going to close down that poll here, and we'll see the results as well. Awesome. So just on the results there, it looks like a majority of people are joining from the reservations and front office side of things, sort of front of house operations, which is great because that's certainly something we'll be focusing in for today and tomorrow. And it's also really nice to see that we've got some newer users or users within their first 1 to 3 years joining in today as well. Nobody over 8 years, but this might also be reviewed by people that are more familiar with the system after the recording is published on our website. Great. So thank you everyone for joining in for that poll. Now let's take a look at our topic for today. Like I said, we are looking at day one of a two-day webinar series for today. And today's reservations topic, we're going to start with a bit of an introduction to myself and people participating today. Then we'll dive right into our topic and define what are reservations in RoomKey. We'll see how to create a reservation, search for reservations, and manage reservations. We'll also talk about where you can find reservation reporting inside RoomKey. And then we'll wrap it all up with a summary and Q&A. So diving right into our introductions for today, my name is Tasha LeClaire. I'm a trainer and implementation specialist with RoomKey since 2015. Joining me today, I also have our Director of Customer Experience, Mr. William Tam. He's been with RoomKey since 2014, has a little bit more experience than I do in hotel operations and food and beverage as well. So I'll be leading today's presentation as well as the live demonstration throughout our webinar today, and William will be overseeing the chat and the Q&A feature. So everyone's microphone is muted for today's presentation, but if you do have any questions, go ahead and click on the Q&A button on your Zoom presentation. You can ask a question there. William can answer it during the presentation, or if we don't have or if he doesn't have an opportunity during the presentation, we do have that Q&A slot at the end of our webinar today. Speaking of our webinar, it is being recorded. You might have seen that notification at the top of the presentation. The webinar recording will be made available on our public support website after today's presentation. Anyone who is attending the live presentation will also have an opportunity to complete a webinar survey. We do appreciate any feedback that you're able to provide on that webinar survey. That does help us continue these webinar series each and every month. We're looking also for suggestions for future topics. So we really appreciate that feedback as well. Now, speaking of our monthly webinar series, I am happy to announce that we will be hosting a webinar next month as well. So next month's webinar topic is going to cover credit card reconciliation. And that's going to include manual reconciliation if you have a standalone or manual system for processing credit cards, or if you do use a credit card processor, third party like Shift4 or Heartland. And it also applies to our in-house processors, RoomKeyPMS Payment, TransSafe, or payments powered by Fullsteam. Right. Now that we've got our introductions out of the way, let's take a look at our topic for today and define what are reservations. So in RoomKey, reservations are defined as a digital record of a guest stay. Now it's pretty vague, but we do go further and define or categorize our reservations based off of status. And the management of these statuses is really what we'll be focusing in on tomorrow's training with front office operations and managing reservations through those different statuses. For today, we'll be focusing on what reservations include, creating them and managing them before guest arrival. So here we've defined that all reservations must include a client type, arrival and departure dates, occupancy information, as well as a rate and room type and a guest profile. So since we're focusing in on what is included in a reservation, let me break this down a little bit more. I'm going to group these into 3 columns, and these actually correspond to the 3 steps that are required to create a reservation. So to begin creating a reservation, you must know you must have a client type, arrival and departure dates, and occupancy. That would be the number of adults and children inside the room. So this first 3 features are often required in order to search for availability or to see what rooms and rate types are available before you can go forward and actually book the rate and room type. Now, this is usually answered whenever you ask a guest what brings them to the hotel. So you might have a guest call in and state that they're traveling on a family trip. They've got a certain arrival, departure date, and they're traveling with 2 adults and 2 children. So that would give you enough to start a reservation or to start a search for availability. Once you see what room types and rates are available to accommodate this guest, you can then select the rate and room type that is most appropriate for their stay. And then lastly, you're going to add in any guest information. So that includes the guest name, contact details, and it may also include payment details like a credit card to guarantee. So I have a short video here that's going to show us this process on screen. So to create a reservation, you're going to click the New Res button, or F2 on your keyboard. That's going to open up the New Res screen and allow you to search for availability. Here is where you can select the client type, the arrival and departure dates for your guest, and you can also enter in the number of adults and children. When you click on the calendar view below, that's now going to update and show you your availability on screen. Now you can right-click on a room type to see a room type description. And when you click the black arrow, that will display a list of available rates. And you can right-click on a rate as well to view a description for that rate plan. Once you have determined which rate you want to select, you place a check mark in the checkbox next to the rate and the checkbox next to the room type. Now we can do our final step, and on the Guest Info tab, you can enter guest information. Now you will see some fields in bold, and those fields are required. You can enter additional information, including any payment information, towards the bottom of the screen here. And lastly, you can click the OK button to complete the reservation. When the reservation is completed, it will show up as a line item on screen in the Reservations view screen. The details of the reservation will appear in the lower half of the screen. So, pretty quick video there that shows us the reservation process from these 3 steps. Now, if there's ever a scenario where you don't have all of these components, maybe the room is not available or the rate type that the guest wants to book isn't available, or if the guest is not able to provide all of their payment information in order to book, we can do what's called a wait list. So I'm going to show that on screen. I have a demo database here that I can display. And I'm going to start the reservation process in the exact same way we saw on the video. So I'm going to click the New Res button, or F2 on my keyboard. And I'm going to do a search. This guest wants to arrive tomorrow, and there's 4 people in the room. So I'm going to start with the arrival date here, select tomorrow for 1 night, and I'm going to increase the number of adults to 4. Now I can click anywhere on this calendar screen or this part of the screen in the center here. I do have a refresh button that's just blinking off to the right-hand side to remind me to refresh this view on screen so I can see my availability. And there it is right there. Now I can see that I have some limited availability for tomorrow night. In fact, the only room I have available for this first couple of categories is an SK. If I right click, I can see that this room is only available to accommodate up to 2 adults. Whereas this room, the SQQ, can accommodate all 4 adults. So it looks like my desired room type is not available. So I'm going to go ahead and select the best available rate for the room type that is not available. If I try and make this booking by selecting the checkbox next to the room type, RoomKey is going to let me know that this is an overbooking situation. I do have the ability to potentially overbook the room type, but I don't want to put my hotel into an overbooking situation. So instead, I'm going to let the guest know that the room is not available, but I can place them on a wait list in the event that the room does become available by tomorrow. So to do that, I'm going to place a check mark into the waitlist checkbox in the top right corner. That's now going to allow me to complete the booking, as well as enter guest information onto the guest info tab. Let me just go ahead and enter some test data. And I can also collect a payment method on file if that is required. So I might say payment method via credit card, or if the guest is not able to provide a payment method at this time, I can simply select cash temporarily. Now, by placing this room on the wait list, it will not take any of this inventory away. So it will not occupy any inventory because, of course, we don't have that room available. It will simply record the information that I've added to the calendar and guest info tab and save that in a wait list queue. So when I click OK, I still see the reservation as a line item on screen and the details of the reservation in the lower half of the screen, but you'll notice that this reservation now appears in the waitlist view screen instead of reservations or arrivals. So that is a handy tool to allow you to still collect guest reservation information, even if you are not able to provide all of the details required for a guaranteed booking. Now, we do have a couple of other ways that we can modify or manage these types of reservations based off of the client type. In the video presentation and the demo I just did, I used a leisure client type. But if you are familiar with RoomKey, or if you've made a reservation before in another system, you may be familiar with other types of client types. So another type of client type that you might use is a corporate client type. That would be a guest that is traveling with a corporate profile or some sort of negotiated rate or profile information associated with their company. So I have a short video here that will show us what it looks like to make a corporate reservation. So to make a corporate reservation, we're going to start in the exact same way. You're going to click New Res or F2 on your keyboard. And when you search for availability, this time your client type, you're going to select corporate. And that's going to give you an extra drop-down menu here where you can actually select the corporate account itself. Once you select the company or corporate account, you can now enter in your arrival and departure dates for the guest, as well as the occupancy or number of adults and children in the room. Once again, you'll refresh the calendar on screen and you'll see the availability show up. You can click the drop-down arrow to view rate information, and this time you may see a specific corporate rate for this type of booking. You would select the preferred rate and the room type, and then you can move on to the final step and enter in guest information. You may note that there are special notes appearing in the reservation note area that are specific to the booking and billing for this guest. In the bottom right-hand corner, you can then click OK once you've added the guest info. The guest reservation will now show up as a line item in the reservations view screen with the details of the booking in the lower half, including the corporate account name. So a corporate reservation, when you're creating one, it follows the same method, the same 3 steps that we saw. The only difference is that you're going to select the corporate account, corporate client type, and the company account at the very beginning. Now, another type of client type variation that you may encounter is a group reservation. So a guest that is booking as part of a group block that has been reserved in advance of the group arrival. So this could be a wedding group, it could be a tour group, anything that has been negotiated through sales and marketing or the revenue management team, where rooms are held aside for a specific event or tour group. So with the group reservation, we've got a couple of tricks that I'll show you right off the bat in order to make a group reservation. So I'm going to see what those tricks are as soon as we open up this group reservation. We'll start the reservation in the exact same way. You're going to click the New Res button or F2. And this time when you search for availability, I'm going to recommend that you start with the arrival and departure dates first. This is a little bit of a trick I like to show. Once you select your arrival and departure dates, you can then select the group client type. And what that does is actually proactively select the group name for you based off of the arrival and departure dates you entered. You can then enter the number of adults and children and click to view the updated availability on screen. Now, when you select your rate and room type, be mindful that the rooms available that you see on screen are part of the group block itself. So once you book a room in the group block, you may wonder if there's other rooms available outside of the block. You can actually click on this Details button, and that will open up the inventory calendar on screen. It will show you rooms available in general inventory, and it will include any rooms that are outside of the group block as well. So that can be helpful to know, but if you don't need to use that, you can simply close that window, book the group rate, and place the check mark next to the room type the guest is going to book. Lastly, you can enter in the guest info. And of course, if there's any notes associated with the group, those will appear in the Res Notes section. There may be several notes regarding booking and billing there. Lastly, to complete the booking, you'll simply select the OK button in the bottom right-hand corner. When the reservation is completed, you'll see the guest reservation as a line item on screen in the Reservations view screen, and the details of the booking appear in the lower half of the screen, including the group name. So that group reservation, that was booking as part of a block of rooms that are available between a certain date range. So between the arrival and departure date, those rooms are set aside for that group. We have one more type of client type variation, and that is a wholesaler reservation. Now, a wholesaler is similar to a group in that there are a block of rooms or certain rooms that are held aside for wholesaler reservations or wholesaler bookings. The difference with a wholesaler, though, is that it is not dependent upon certain arrival and departure dates. Group block is going to only be valid within a certain date range. A wholesaler block is available year-round. So let's take a look at how we can make a reservation for a wholesaler guest. So just like always, we'll start with the New Res button or F2 on your keyboard. We'll search for availability by selecting the wholesaler client type. You can then enter your client company name or select the company, that tour company, and enter your arrival and departure dates for the guests, as well as the number of adults and children in the room. When you click and refresh the calendar, this will show you the availability in that wholesaler block. You can click the black drop-down arrow to select the wholesaler rate, and click the check mark next to the room type to select the room itself. Lastly, you can enter the guest information onto the guest info page and select OK in order to complete the reservation. These reservations will appear as a line item on screen in the Reservations view screen. Just like we've seen so far, the reservation details appear at the bottom alongside with the wholesaler name. So that encompasses all of the variations that we can have, or client type variations that are available for booking different types of reservations in RoomKey. We're going to move on in our presentation to now see how we can search for reservations in RoomKey. And I'm going to bring up our live database once again, that example that we were working with earlier. From RoomKey, I'm going to show you a couple of options that are available for search. If you've logged into RoomKey previously, or if you've used RoomKey already, you may be familiar with the search drop-down menu that appears at the top of the screen. This search menu is going to give you two options for a basic search and advanced search. When you click on the search option, or this is what I call the basic search, you're going to get a pop-up window here where you can type in some key pieces of information. So if we're speaking to a guest or looking for a reservation for guest last name Smith, first name starting with the letter D, I can enter those pieces of information into the values available here. Of course, if I have any additional information, I can add that as well to narrow down my search. Now, with this type of search, when I click the search button, it's going to let me know that I need to indicate the status of the reservation first before I can do a search using this tool. So there is a limitation to this basic search, is that you need to know the status of the reservation that you're looking for. Let's go ahead and select canceled. And I'll do a search for any canceled reservations for D. Smith. Those results will show up on screen as individual line items, and I can see that I've got 5 different reservations results, and these are all within the canceled view screen on the right-hand side. Now I'm going to compare the same search function with the advanced search tool. Now, I personally like to use the advanced search more than the basic search, especially since it does have a shortcut key. Here you can see the F3 key is indicated as a shortcut, so I can click F3 on my keyboard to open up this search. So when I do the search, I have my search criteria available, those available fields on the left-hand side, and I can enter in D. Smith and select the search button or enter on my keyboard. When I do a search for D. Smith using the advanced search, I actually get 7 results instead of just 5. I can see I've got 2 additional results where the guest actually checked in and checked out. And instead of having to define the status first, this advanced search is actually going to tell me what the status of each of these reservations are based off of the icon in this last column on the right-hand side. If you need to know what these icons mean, there is a legend at the bottom of this search screen that tells you what those color combinations mean. And of course, I've got those 5 search results that are canceled or canceled reservations. And I have 2 additional search results that are my checked out reservations appearing with that blue icon. So from this search, I can select a reservation or a result on screen, click the OK button in the bottom of the screen, and that will now display that as a reservation line item. And of course, it's going to correspond to the status of the reservation off to the right-hand side. So that's in the checked out screen. Now, another feature that I like of the advanced search is that it will save the last search that you used. So if I selected the wrong checked out reservation for D. Smith, I can click F3 on my keyboard to bring up my search results once again, select the other checked out reservation for D. Smith, and select OK. So instead of having to rerun the search itself, it will save that last search result and make it really easy to navigate throughout those results in RoomKey. So a couple of great tools to use when searching for a reservation in RoomKey. Now, once you've had an opportunity to search for reservations, I also wanted to dive into how we can manage different types of reservations in RoomKey. Now, I'm going to bring up that database or test database once again, just so we can use some of these examples here as well. So I'm going to start with how to change a reservation or make changes to a reservation that's already been made. I'm going to navigate over here to the reservations view screen. That's going to show me a list of my upcoming reservations. And I have a guest that calls in, Mr. Wilson, reservation ID 2095 or last name Wilson. Another way I could do that, of course, is to use my search features we just saw. But once you locate the reservation, in order to make some changes here, the guest has advised that we need to change the first name. His name is not David, it is Daniel. Add some parking to the reservation as well. So in order to make these changes, I can either double click on the reservation, or you can click the Change Res button at the top of the screen. When you double click on the reservation or click Change Res, it's going to give you a pop-up screen that allows you to edit the booking. Now, the first thing we said is that the guest is changing the name on the reservation. So I'm going to go to the guest info page and I'm going to change his name to Daniel. I'm also going to update the email address and just keep it as dwilson@email.com. Now, some other details that you can add into a reservation, you can record guest address information, the nationality, or a GDS confirmation reference number. You can also add in a source of business, so explain how this guest made the reservation, whether it is by phone. You might have some options for repeat guests or referral guests as well. I'm just going to go ahead and select source of business as phone. You can also record guest notes or reservation note. We've got two note fields here. A guest note is going to be attached to this guest profile. So the next time that this guest stays at the hotel, the guest note will automatically populate in this field. A reservation note is attached to this one-time reservation. So this might be some key pieces of information like estimated time of arrival, or if there's any special requests for this guest during their stay, you can add that as a reservation note. That will not follow the guest to their next stay, but it is helpful for their stay whenever they stay at the hotel. You can also record vehicle information at the bottom here. If the guest has a second address, we've got fields for allowing for a second name or second address, and you can even tell RoomKey to use the second address as a default on all confirmation, registration, or guest folio or billing information. And then if your property needs to collect additional information that is not available provided in any of these fields, you can set up custom data fields and collect additional information. This database will also allow you to collect birthday or anniversary information as custom data. So quite a lot of details we can add or use to enhance this guest information. We also have additional tabs along the top here where you can add additional information for the guest booking. So we did say that the guest also wants to pay for parking while they're on site during their stay. So that is found in the Services tab. Now, services or guest services are set up ahead of time. So if your database or if your property has guest services, they may be paid guest services or they may be complimentary guest services. A list of available guest services will appear on the right-hand side of this Services tab. You can select a guest service like overnight parking in this example. Use the black arrow key to add that to the guest booking, and that will appear as a line item here. The name of the service will appear first. So this is overnight parking at a price of $10 per night. And you can see that it is added to the booking. So the frequency or addition of a service will automatically add into the booking throughout the guest stay in this case. If it is a one-time fee, you may have different pricing available or different fees associated with guest services. So for example, if I add in, let's say, a late checkout, this is an example of a complimentary service where the price is $0 and it is requested for the day of the guest stay. So it's requested up front. So you can have paid or complimentary guest services, and you can add or remove guest services from this tab as much as needed. So I could remove that guest service using the black arrow key. And once you are satisfied with the guest services added to the booking itself, you'll see a total appear in the lower right-hand corner of the Services tab here. Now you can update any of these fields. So for example, you could change the price. Let's change that to $8 per night. And you also have the ability to change the frequency of this guest service. So if the guest says that they only need overnight parking for the first 2 nights of their stay, but not the final night, I can replace that with a 0, and that will remove that guest service. So overnight parking will only be charged for this guest for the first 2 nights of their stay. And I can see that reflected in the service charges in the lower right corner. Now, these service charges will also appear as other charges on the room charge summary at the top of the screen. So services, like I said, you want to set those up ahead of time. You can refer to our support website for more information about setting up and managing your guest services. The next option that we have to add as an enhancement to this booking is the ability to add a travel agent. Travel agent accounts or profiles are set up ahead of time, and they are available from this drop-down list when you are attaching it to a booking. So if I had travel agent from One World Travel contact me to make this booking on behalf of a guest, I can attach the travel agent profile. I can indicate who I was speaking to, so it might have been Mary at One World Travel, and the default commission automatically shows up here as well, alongside the IATA number for One World Travel Agency. Now, if the travel agent isn't already available from this drop-down menu, you can use the magnifying glass to add a travel agent. When you click the magnifying glass, this is going to allow you to either search for a travel agent profile, or you can click the Add button here to add in a new travel agent profile and attach it to your booking. Now, just be mindful that travel agent or creating a travel agent profile may be subject to permission settings. So if you do not have access to add a travel agent, you may need to review the permission settings for your clerk ID or for your login. If you're a front desk or reservation agent, you may have to have a manager do that review for you regarding your permission settings. Travel agents are not as common as they once were, but if you do still work with any independent travel agencies, we do have a travel agent tab where you can attach that travel agent with their IATA information, and you can issue a check for commission back to the travel agent after the guest has stayed. Now, a more common tool to use is actually the guest share. This tool is used to register additional guests to the reservation. So this guest booking only has one adult, and that adult contact information appears on the guest info tab. So that was Daniel Wilson. We saved that information here. If Daniel was traveling with one or more other people and we needed to register their first and last names for the booking, we can do that on the guest share tab, where you can select insert, and you can add the first and last name of any additional guests. Simply type in the first and last name, and you can click post in the lower right-hand corner. Now you can go a little bit further, and if Paula and Daniel are splitting charges between their stay, you can give Paula her own folio, meaning that she would have separate billing with her own name on the bill. When you click Use Folio, that will automatically give you a designation folio off to the right-hand side. So by default, the main guest on the main guest info will have folio 1. And here we're going to use folio 2 for Paula's billing. Now you can go even further and you can store separate information for Paula Wilson as well. You can select Store as Guest, and that will give you a pop-up to now store additional contact information, as much as you need to collect, including any telephone number, address information. You can store separate guest notes unique to Paula herself, as well as a unique payment method. You can even collect those custom data fields as well, specific to Paula. When you click OK, it will save those details associated with folio 2 for Paula Wilson. I'm just going to click cancel here. And in fact, if you have any shared guests that do not arrive or need to be changed at any time, you can select the shared guest, click the edit button to make changes if needed, or in this case, because there's only one person in the room, I'm going to delete that profile. So Several ways that you can manage profiles for additional guests registered to the room using that guest share tab on the reservation. Now, we also have the ability to set up routing. This is for the purpose of billing, and you can route charges to separate bills. So this routing tool or tab on our screen, what this allows you to do is set up split billing, or you can route charges to a separate booking altogether. For some bookings, if they are a corporate or group booking, they may already have some billing instructions that appear on the guest info tab. But if this guest was maybe traveling with another guest, or maybe this guest asked to have their room charges and their food and beverage charges separate. By default, RoomKey will post all charges to Folio 1. But if this guest wants to have, let's say, their parking charges on a separate folio, I can select Other Charge, and the transaction code is going to be that parking charge, which is overnight parking. There it is right there, and I can see overnight parking is the name of the charge. Now I want to keep it to the same booking, so I'm going to select Route to the same booking, but I simply want it to go to a separate folio, in this case, folio number 2. I can now click Add, and this will now tell RoomKey that any charges, any of the parking overnight charges are going to automatically go to folio 2. So that will separate it from the room and tax charges on folio 1. Now, another way that you can add routing instructions is instead of routing to the same booking, you can actually route charges to a separate booking or a separate guest. If I was going to do that with the overnight parking, instead of using the route to same booking and the folio number here, I'm going to jump directly down to my Res ID field. This will allow me to see a list of in-house reservations. If the guest is not in-house, I can use my Filter By tool and select Future Reservations. So I can see a list of all my future reservations. And this list is going to show you the Res ID, last name, and first name listed here as well. So if this guest, James Pierce, is going to be taking care of the parking charges for Daniel Wilson, I can select James Pierce Res ID and select the Add button. So 2 different ways that you can set up routing for this booking based off of the type of charge that is being posted. Of course, if the routing is no longer needed, or if you want to remove routing instructions, you would simply select the routing line item and use the delete button at the bottom of the screen. We'll actually delete both of those. The last option that we have to add or manage a reservation is a tasks tab. Now, tasks are internal messages between staff members regarding a reservation. So this guest is going to be arriving today, and maybe I want to remind the front desk staff to add a welcome amenity to the booking or to the guest arrival. Here on the Tasks tab, I can select New Task, and this will open up the Message Center and allow me to send a message to a specific user or a whole department using RoomKey. So I'm going to select my hotel, and I'm also going to select the front desk team. Here in the message, just like an email, I have a subject and body. So I'm going to add a subject here. We'll say welcome amenity. And the body of the text is to remind the front desk staff to put a welcome amenity in the guest room for guest arrival. When I select send, that will now issue this as a reminder or pop up on screen the next time that any of my front desk staff log into RoomKey. Now, this task will appear as a line item. You can repeat that process to create as many new tasks as you need related to this booking. Now, I did go through that task center or message center field quite quickly. We do actually have a full webinar that discusses how to communicate internally using the message center in RoomKey, including these tasks. I will include that in my follow-up email after today's presentation as well. So if you'd like to learn more about creating tasks or managing internal communication, we have a really great webinar for that as well. So we've seen how we can add or modify the reservation by updating the guest information. We added some services and reviewed some of these details as well. Once you make any of your changes to the reservation, you want to go ahead and click OK in the bottom right-hand corner. Now, because we are changing the guest name, that's part of the guest profile. And RoomKey is asking us if we want to update the existing guest profile or if we want to create a new separate profile for the guest. Because we're actually speaking to Mr. Wilson and he's advised that his name is Daniel, not David, I'm going to update the existing guest profile. Let me go ahead and update this guest profile, and we'll just click yes to confirm that update. So now on screen, I can see the reservation name has updated to Daniel Wilson. I can also see that we have updated his email address in the lower half of the screen. And when the guest checks in, they'll be charged for parking based off of the guest service that we added as well. Now, there are some shortcuts to adding things like a guest service or a shared guest. You can add another shared guest using this share icon. So this double-headed icon here, you can double click in that space and that will allow you to quickly insert a shared guest. So I could have added Paula Wilson here as well. A little bit quicker than opening up or using the change res button. Another thing that I can update from this screen using double click is to double click in this notes icon, and this will allow me to quickly add a reservation note. When you post or add a note, you will see that reservation note automatically appear in the lower half of the screen. That will show the most recent reservation note on file for this guest. Now, I can also add a guest service quickly without having to open up the booking as well. You can right-click on the reservation and you can update guest services. You can even show tasks or update the task messages that we added at the end as well. So different ways to change or manage those components associated with the reservation itself. I'm going to go back to our presentation here. I'm going to show you some other ways that you can manage a reservation. And another way that you can do so is to change some of those search for availability features. So the client type, the arrival, departure, or occupancy information. You can also change the room rate. Now, those require an additional step that I'm going to show you here in this quick video. So to change a reservation, specifically any of the client type information, you're going to start in much of the same way. You're going to select the reservation and click Change Res or double click on the reservation. The first thing you need to do is uncheck the book box. And this will now allow you to change things like the client type. You can change arrival and departure dates, and you can change occupancy information. Now, because we're changing some of these search criteria, we do need to refresh the calendar in order to update our availability. Now, this guest also wants to change the room type, so we're going to change the rate plan first. We're going to select the AAA rate for the DQQ room type, and you're also going to recheck the book box. You'll notice on the guest info tab that none of those fields will change. You can simply review those details and click OK to complete that change. Of course, any reservations that are changed will still show up as a line item on the reservation screen. So I just wanted to have an opportunity to show you those different types of ways that you can change a reservation, whether it requires you to uncheck the book box or recheck the book box. So some other ways that you might need to manage a reservation or make changes to a reservation include overriding a rate. So if you ever need to change the rate price on a reservation, just be mindful that this does require a reservation management permission 342. So let's take a look at this together as well. So to override a rate, you're going to start in much the same way. You'll select the reservation and click the Change Res button. You're going to uncheck the book box and click the black arrow to view the rate price. Now the price itself is $123, but we need to change that. So we're going to enable rate override. When you do that, you need to provide a reason. So go ahead and select a reason from the drop-down menu that appears and click Enable Rate Override. You can now manually type in the new rate price, which in this case is going to be $119. Once you've updated the price, you can go ahead and recheck the book box. And of course, you can review the details on the guest info page and click OK in the bottom right corner. That updated rate will now appear on screen for the reservation. So now that we've seen how to override a rate, we've got another way that we can manage reservations, and that includes copying a reservation. There are no permission requirements for this, so we'll see how we can copy a reservation. This is really helpful, especially if you have a guest that wants to book 2 or more rooms. So you'd make the room reservation for the first room, and then you can use this tool to copy the details over to a second reservation. So to copy a reservation, you're going to start from the reservation itself, and you're going to right-click on the reservation and select the new Res add-on option. The new Res add-on is going to use the same search information and also the same rate. You can simply check the box next to the selected room type. You can then move on to the Guest Info tab, and you can add additional guest information or simply add a reservation note and click OK. So you'll now see the second booking appearing right next to the original booking in the reservation screen. Now let's move on to how to cancel reservations. It's our last part of the management, and we've got 2 different ways that you can cancel a reservation. You can cancel without a penalty, which we'll see first, or you can cancel a reservation with a penalty. Let's see how to cancel a reservation without a penalty first. So to cancel a reservation without a penalty, you're going to select the reservation, and then you're going to click the Cancel button at the top of the screen. A cancel window will appear and ask you to provide a reason for canceling. You can select a reason and then click the Cancel Res button. You confirm if you want to view the cancellation confirmation, which will appear on screen alongside a cancellation policy information at the bottom of the page. When the reservation is canceled, it will appear as a line item on the canceled screen. Now let's see that same process, but with charging a cancellation penalty or cancellation fee. So to cancel a reservation with a penalty, you're going to start in much the same way. Select the reservation and click the Cancel button. This time, you'll still select a reason, but you'll also note that a cancellation penalty is going to be charged. So you're going to click the Cancel and Charge button, and immediately afterwards, you'll have a payment window appear with the guest payment information. You can click OK, Exit, and of course, you can review the cancellation confirmation letter with the cancellation policy as well. That reservation will now appear in the canceled screen as a line item. And if we take a look at that guest folio, you'll now see the cancellation fee and the payment that we also process using the guest credit card on file. Now, we do have a way to reinstate reservations that have been canceled. We can show for both a cancellation penalty and without a cancellation penalty. So we'll see that in our last video here. So to reinstate a canceled reservation, you're going to start from the canceled view screen select the reservation, and click the Reinstate button. You'll select Yes to confirm the reinstatement, and you'll have an opportunity to review the booking details. So the Calendar tab, the Guest Info tab. If there's no changes needed, you can simply select OK in the bottom right-hand corner to reinstate the reservation. That'll now appear in the Reservations view screen. Now, the second scenario you may encounter, again, starting from the Canceled view screen, you're going to select the reservation and the Reinstate button. When you click Yes, you may get this error message warning you that there are cancellation fees on the booking. So in order to reinstate this, you must first remove the cancellation fee on the guest folio. You can right-click on the cancellation fee and select Reverse. When you reverse the charge, you need to enter a reason why you are reversing it and click OK. Once you have reversed the cancellation fee, you can then proceed as normal. Select the reservation and click the Reinstate button and click Yes to confirm. Just like before, you'll have the opportunity to review the booking details on both the Calendar tab and the Guest Info tab. And if all is well, you can select the OK button in the bottom right-hand corner. Again, this reservation will appear as a line item in the reservation screen, but in this reservation in particular on the Folio tab, you'll still see that that payment that was used to pay for the cancellation now appears as an advance deposit. So a couple of different things there to be mindful of when we're dealing with reservation. I'm just going to show a couple of reports that can be referenced, and then we'll look at wrapping up our presentation for today. So because we've made some reservations, we've also seen how you can manage or change reservations. You actually have this tracked, or those creation and changes tracked using a tool called the activity log. In the operations menu, you can find activity log towards the bottom of this menu. When you select the activity log, you can view activity or changes made to a reservation based off of Res ID. So I'm going to select Res ID 2147, click the Show button, and that will show us all the changes made to the reservation, including when it was first created, if it's been changed or canceled or reinstated. We even include check-in and check-out changes as well. Each of these changes is logged with a date and timestamp and the name of the user who made those changes. So it'll track the clerk ID on this list as well. Now, you can see the details of a change by clicking on the parameters, the black arrow in the parameters column. But as you get used to reviewing these details, I do recommend that you select the print option here. That will give you a print preview and expand all of these parameters, making it easier to review these details. Now, another set of reports that I like to recommend, depending on your operations, is found in the Reports menu. Within the Occupancy section, this is where you can find many of your occupancy reports to pull a list of reservations that are maybe future reservations by name or reservation date. You can also pull reports such as your arrivals or departures reports. These maybe become a little more applicable to tomorrow's presentation for front office training. So very helpful to view those reports inside RoomKey. Now, to wrap up our presentation for today, I'd just like to summarize the RoomKey reservations tool. They do allow you to facilitate accurate booking and billing for your guest stays, as well as allowing for flexibility and change, where you can kind of modify reservations as needed to suit your guest and clientele. Now, I know that we've gone just a bit 2 minutes over time, so I'm just going to check our Q&A. I know that William has been monitoring that information. We've got a couple of answered questions already, and I do have one outstanding question from Amber asking if there is a report where you can pull guest name and share names. And this is relating more specifically to a group for rooming lists. Now, for group rooming lists, including the share names, I would recommend a custom report. We don't have a report in RoomKey that will display all of those details on one report. I will include follow-up with reference to where you can find more information about creating and managing custom reports using the Report Wizard tool in RoomKey. So I'll go ahead and include that in my follow-up as well. So thank you everyone for joining in today. I do appreciate your attention, and I look forward to also working with you tomorrow for part 2 or day 2 of our 2-day webinar series. Tomorrow we'll dive more into the front office operations. Thank you everyone. Have a great day.